Hello, this is SJ Talks in Life coming back at you with another video. If you're new to my channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe. Uh, Looks like I'm losing subscribers again. I had 100 or 1006, and now it seems like I'm down to 1001. So I'm gonna be pissed if it goes back under 1,000. So it'll go back up. I'm not gonna worry about that, but yeah. So I don't know what's going on. But anyway, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It's getting cold out here. Fall is coming. Yep, it's just around the corner. So I won't be able to do too many more outside videos. But anyway, I want to talk about, today is Wednesday, September 13th. No, 14th, 2022. And I want to talk about the consequences of single parenthood. As you know, like I said, I talk about single parenthood a lot on here. I spent many years being a single parent myself. So I like to talk about single parenthood a lot. Any young people that are watching me, give them some viable advice, and maybe they can prevent becoming a single parenthood, becoming a single parent. Who knows? But I like to talk about single parenthood because, like I said, I spent many years being a single parent, and yeah, it's single parenthood runs rampant in the black community, and it's become normalized in the black community. It's become normalized, and that's the major problem. It has become normalized in the black community, and we really should change our mindset. A lot of the programming needs to take place in the black community with black people. We need to get out of the mindset that single parenthood is normal or it's natural, because it's not. It's not natural. And there's a lot of, I want to talk about the consequences, and I'm speaking from personal experience and from what I have seen in over the years in the black communities. There's major consequences to single parenthood. I mean, anytime you go outside of the will of God, God says in the Bible, Jehovah God says that we need to get married first, then have the children. That is the order that it's supposed to be in. We're supposed to get married first, and then we're supposed to have our children so our children can grow up in a two-parent home. There's male and there's female, and so men and the woman, they balance each other out. God made women, as women, we're more nurturing. He put in us to be more nurturing. And men, he made them more of protectors and disciplinarians. So, and they're physically stronger and everything. So, women, we're more nurturing, and we're teachers, so of the young children. So the men and the women balance each other out, and this is the reason why God said there should be a husband and a wife, a mother and the father in the home for the children, because the man and the woman literally balance each other out, and so it gives the child that perfect balance, with a mother and a father in the home, and that child will grow up more emotionally stable. If it's not if it's a loving home, let's say not a dysfunctional home, but if it's a loving home, the child will grow up more emotionally stable, more mentally stable. That is the goal. There's always some exceptions, but in most cases, children do better in a two-parent home. I mean, it's a statistical fact. Statistically, children that grow up in a two-parent home do better than children that grow up in single-parent homes. Children that grow up in single-parent homes, as I stated many times before, have higher high school dropout rates, have lower grades in school. The the women or the girls that grow up in single parent homes, there's a more of a chance of them having children outside of marriage themselves, or having there's more of a chance of them becoming a teen mom or having children outside of marriage. Boys, there's a higher percentage chance of them being incarcerated, or yeah, and so there's all kinds of it's so more detrimental when a young black child is being raised in a single parent home. It's detrimental on all children, but it's especially detrimental on black children because we got more working against us. And so yeah, there is a lot of consequences for males and females as far as single parenthood. You know, um, we like to put a lot of the blame on women when children grow up, in single parent homes, and a lot of the things that's going on in the black communities, a lot of the dysfunction, there's a lot of dysfunction in the black communities, a lot of high crime in the black communities, and a lot of, yeah, I didn't know the electric company was picking up appliances for free. I'm sorry, I got sidetracked. Anyway, I'm sorry, I got sidetracked. It's kind of early. I'm out here kind of early. Anyway, as I was saying, a lot of things that goes on in the black community, a lot of the crime and everything that takes place in gang activity, a lot of things that takes place in the black community. The first thing that people want to say is, well, because they're being raised by single mothers. But what they fail to realize is because of a lack of a father in the home, or lack of a father figure in the home. It's the major reason why a lot of this stuff is taking place. They're being raised in single parent homes, but then they don't have a father in the home, and that is the major reason. And and a lot of people likes to focus on the things that happens in relation to women, black women being single parents, or women in general being single parents. People want to focus more on the woman's consequences, and women takes on the brunt of the consequences, because when a woman has a child without the benefit of a husband, she gets saddled with, because she carried the child in her body and everything, she gets saddled with the primary responsibility, the custodial custody and primary responsibility of the child. Um, and if the father is not there, then she gets all that financial responsibility She gets the total care and responsibility of the child on her shoulders, you know. And the woman has to deal with the bulk of the responsibilities. You have to make sure the child is financially, do everything in her power to make sure the child is financially, provided for. Education, make sure the child get their education. She's responsible for the child's emotional well-being, spiritual well-being. All that falls on her shoulders, and it's a huge responsibility, and it's overwhelming for a lot of women. I know it was overwhelming for me when I was raising my kids, and that's it's so the woman usually typically has to has to take on the bulk of the responsibility, the consequences of single parenthood. And this is the reason why women have to be more responsible for their bodies. Women have to really, really take responsibility for their bodies, that make sure that, you be selective about who you decide to procreate with, making sure that this man is going to be committed to you, and um, taking women have to take more responsibility for their bodies. Absolutely, women definitely got to take more responsibility for their bodies, because the women typically gets most of that bulk of that responsibility of being a single parent. It's going to fall on her shoulders, and it's an overwhelming responsibility. Um, but the man has consequences too. Now that is the consequences um, of being a single mother, and then you have to worry about working, providing financially for this child, and make sure this child gets their education. This is a child's emotional well-being, spiritual well-being, physical well-being, making sure that they maintain their health, putting clothes on their back, food in their mouth. It's you're responsible for all that. And so that is a tremendous responsibility for one person. For even if there's a single father is raising a child, there is tremendous responsibility for just one person. But the man has consequences as well, and the consequences for the man is, which nobody likes to really think about and focus on, is when you have a child, when you're a man and you have a child by a woman and you're not married to her, and she gives birth to this child, you're going to be responsible for paying child support. You're going to be responsible for paying child. The man has the responsibility of paying child support on this child, and as we know, the child support system is very flawed, and they garnish the man's wages, sometimes put men in jail, sometimes take men's license away, and then a lot of men complain that the mother keeps the child from them, so they have to argue with the mother, and um, they have to, if the mother is not being cooperative, then they have to go back and forth with the woman as far as visitation and seeing their child, if they're interested in halfway being a father to the child. So you have to deal with not being able to be in the home with your child when you're a man. You have to put up with not being able to be home in the home with your child, and worrying about if there's going to be somebody else around your child that shouldn't be around your child, and stuff like that. And I know a lot of men that's facing that dilemma. They're facing the dilemma. The woman is trying to keep the child from them for whatever reason, and so they gotta. And some men can't afford a lawyer. They can't afford to fight it in court to try to get visitation. I hear a lot of people in the men in the black manosphere that complain about that a lot. It's a major issue for a lot of men, and then they have to fight to see their child, and it's it can become very volatile. And then they got to worry about, they got to put up with their wages being garnished, and stuff like that, and or and having to pay child support. That is the consequence of having a child with a woman that you are not married to. That's the consequences for the man, and being put in jail, being arrested, because of back. If you get behind on your child support, you could be arrested and be placed in jail. So that is the consequences. The man has to suffer consequences as well. And so that is the consequences of when you have a child by a woman and she's not your wife. So both male and females have to suffer consequences for having children outside of marriage, single parenthood. It's a set of consequences for both the male and female, you know. And so this is the reason why it should never be normalized in our community. Single parenthood should never be normalized in our community. It should never be normalized. That is the reason why it should not be normalized, because, and then what it does to the child is that sometimes the child has psychological and emotional damage being raised in a single parent, particularly if the parents don't get along with each other. Particularly if the parents don't get along with each other and they can't learn to co parent effectively, the child has a lot of psychological and emotional damage, grows up with a lot of psychological and emotional damage. If that child has a toxic mother, it's worse. If that child is exposed to many different people, multiple mates coming in and out, it's going to be more mental and emotional damage that that child is going to have as a result of not having the benefit of two parents. And for a black male, that can be very detrimental, because that sometimes they gravitate towards gangs, particularly, I mean, depending on what community they're growing up in. They can gravitate more towards gangs and stuff, gang activity and things like that. And this is the reason why you have a lot of these things going on in the black communities. And then sometimes sometimes the mothers are so busy working, the cost of living done got so high. Sometimes the mother's so busy trying to work that there's going to be a lot lacking there, because that takes away time that she can spend with the child and stuff like that. So a lot is lacking there too. So it really, really has a bad effect on the children. It really has a terrible effect on the children. It has a terrible effect on males and females. And so single parenthood has major consequences for both males and females. But the most person that is affected by it the most is the child, is the children. And so that's why I say we gotta stop normalizing single parenthood in the black community. And then we gotta stop putting all the burdens and the responsibility on the black woman's shoulders, um, as far as single motherhood is concerned, and then when there's dysfunctional children in the community, all the blame gets put on the black woman's shoulders, when it really should be both parents. That child growing up in a home without a father is much more of a major issue. And so this is the reason why it's important for us to stay in the will of God. When you go outside the will of God, you're going to have problems every time. So it's important for people to stay in the will of God and do things the right way. If you get married and you have your children in the marriage, things runs a lot smoother. That your child grows up with the benefit of two parents in the home. You know, some people opt to not have children if they don't have that stable mate, and that's smart thinking. And that is smart thinking. That is very smart thinking. People like to condemn people that don't have kids, but some people don't want to have a child if they don't have that stable mate. That is very wise. It's a very wise decision, and it's a smart move, because ultimately it really winds up affecting the child. It's going to affect you. And I don't if I, this video is going to be way longer if I go into the emotional effects that it has on the mother that has to have the burden of raising the children alone, what it does to the mother mentally and emotionally. That's a whole nother video. With the detrimental effects it has on the woman mentally and emotionally and sometimes spiritually. So single parenthood has major consequences for both. It's not just on the woman, but it's on the man as well. And more people need to think about it. More people need to take responsibility, more responsibility, men and women, for their bodies. People put more thought into getting married than they do having kids. And much more thought should be put into have before people decide to procreate and have kids. Because this is, you're responsible for another person's life. So yeah, so let me know what your thoughts are on single parenthood in the black community as far as the consequences for both males and females. Yeah, let me know what your thoughts are on that. And hit the subscribe button, the like and the share and the notification bell. Notify you when I do a video. And until the next video, be blessed.